Alright, so I wanted to record this process that I'm using to edit videos in ScreenFlow now, because this is video 68 of 72, so I've been doing this a lot over the last few weeks, and I feel like I've gotten to some level of optimization with the process that I haven't before. I don't want to lose it and go back to some sort of old process that's like deeper embedded in my reptilian brain. So what I've done is use Keyboard Maestro in order to map some keys, so I can just have one hand on the keyboard and one hand on the trackpad, and I kind of go between the two in order to edit. And I have two main keys that I'm using now, which is kind of cool. So I use W in order to set a start point, and then E in order to set an end point, do a ripple delete, go back a second, like a shift back, and then a space bar to play. So it does a lot all in one, but what happens when I press it is this.
Two versions, which means that
which allows me to preview that transition between the two sides of the cut really fast, which is nice. Now, the additional layer that I've added kind of lately, which I'm proud of, is the ability to kind of do this in real time. So I'm just going to do this for a little while to help hopefully jog my memory as to what I'm doing. I'll be doing probably some different things with the trackpad, and in order to sort of start, like move my cursor to a certain point. But I'm pretty much keeping the playhead playing the entire time so that I don't have to keep starting and stopping or getting sort of caught up in that. I can, while it's playing like that, you can click the sort of timeline and drag around, and you can set a starting point, like I just,
and then we specifically want to
so that's the worst. Whenever I do this thing where I accidentally delete to the beginning,
instead of an error-prone,
I'd really like to figure out how not to do that. So I gotta scroll back to the place where I was doing the editing here. Okay, so while I'm playing, I'll just record kind of what I'm doing here.
Versions, which means that we want to support the last two versions of all major browsers, and then we specifically want to support IE8
that was a little close,
and IE,
so I might do it again.
And then major browsers, and then we specifically want to support IE8 and IE9.
Okay, and I'll click.
And IE9. Now, to learn what we can put in here,
now I can cut this last little bit if I'm not happy with it, W, and then I let go, and then press E pretty much right away.
And IE9. Now, to learn what we can put in here, we can click on this default browsers link.
And then what's kind of nice is that once I made a cut, the playhead sort of, it grips to the cut. And so it's easy to find that cut again.
Browsers link, and scroll down. And you can scroll down, and we can see in the documentation here different ways that we can specify which browsers we want to support. We saw the last two versions in the previous example, but we can specify the last two versions in a specific browser. We can specify previous example, we can specify any browser. We saw the last two versions in the previous example. We can specify any browser that has more than a certain percent.
So because it's playing the whole time, it's a little easier to remember in sort of the short-term memory what I've said and then repeat it over myself. And so it's a little easier to cut back when I'm doing it this way, which is really handy.
We can specify any browser that has more than a certain percentage of users, and we can specify specific versions of browsers that we want to support. Now again,
one more thing is that I'm trying to do all my editing underneath the picture, so that kind of out of the corner of my eye you can see when something is a bad transition or it's sort of jumpy, like the cursor jumps from one place to another, or the highlighting jumps from one place to another and it doesn't make sense. Anytime that happens, I can just add a transition you know, of about this size before moving on, in between them, and then playing through that makes it look a little bit more purposeful, a little less surprising. And I have this zoomed in so that I measure it each time now so that it's always consistent. This one's a little bit, it should be 104 pixels. So I usually can get 104 pixels between the between 2 seconds, but this one is 108. Both of them seem fine, but I try to go for 104. I guess I'm making an exception with this one.
Now again, all of this will reference a database on caniuse.com, which is use.com, which is what we've been doing when we've used,
Now I knew I was about to repeat myself, but doing the cut there allows me to more easily cut it back.
.com, which is what we've been doing. Use.com, which is what we've been referencing as we've tried to figure out which CSS properties we can use users without alienating certain users.
It's easy to see with the waveform that I was repeating myself over and over there.
So for this project, we can add in certain users. So for this project, I think we're good to go. We can add in additional specifics if we find out we need to support certain other browsers.
Wow, I'm at the end of the file already? It's pretty wild. Okay. So that's it. I just recording this so I don't forget. All right, future self, make this even better.